Welcome to the flipped instructional session for Math 08A for Unit 207, Multiple Transformation Equations. Our objective today is to solve linear equations with rational number coefficients, which just is a fancy way to say we're going to solve for x. We have a few different vocab today, but the one that we have been focusing on are these inverse operations. So we've talked about that addition, inverse operation is subtraction, subtraction is addition. You should have seen multiplication, inverse is division, and division inverse is multiplication. We're going to look at all of these today, and we're going to do multiple steps to solve. So before we do that, let's do a brief review. We have a fraction and some decimals. Order of operations would tell us to do that parentheses first, 9.8 minus 3.3, which is 6.5. So this means 1/5 times 6.5. And when we do 1/5 times 6.5, we get 1.3. So that's just a reminder. This is a fraction, and to do parentheses before you do the multiplication. So here's our first problem. So I'm going to write them out a little bit so we can see them. X over 3 plus 7 equals 4.1. So kind of our steps that we're going to look at as this moves further and further into equations. Our first step is to always remove parentheses, which there are no parentheses. 2, combine like terms, which we don't have like terms to combine right now, but we will eventually. 3 is to get numbers on one side of equation using inverse operations. And then we'll see eventually where we have variables on both sides, so we're going to do get variables on one side of equation using inverse operations. So those are kind of the steps we're going to follow. So right now, we don't have parentheses, we don't have like terms, but we can start here. Get numbers on one side of the equation. So we have x divided by 3 plus 7 equals 4.1. So our first step is to move anything that is not variable to one side. So a lot of people think, oh, let's multiply by this 3. Well, this 3 is part of this variable term. 7 is not. So we want to get anything that's not part of the variable term away first. So we are going to do the inverse of plus 7 first. So we're going to subtract 7 from both sides. So we have x over 3 equal to 4.1 minus 7, which is negative 2.9. Now that this is by itself, this is a variable term is by itself, we can get rid of this 3. But we had to move this 7 first. So this means x divided by 3. So the inverse of dividing is multiplying. So we're going to multiply by 3, multiply by 3. When we do that, we end up with 3 in the numerator and 3 in the denominator. 3 over 3 reduces to 1. So that's why that works. This reduces to 1. So we're just left with x. So we have x equals negative 2.9 times 3, which is negative 8.7. Now this is important to do the check, because if you're in the practice of doing the check, then you can make sure that you have done the order correctly. So the check, we take negative 8.7 and plug it in where we see an x. So we have negative 8.7 divided by 3 plus 7, and hopefully we get 4.1. Order of operations tells us we do this division first. Negative 8.7 divided by 3 is negative 2.9. Negative 2.9 plus 7 is 4.1. If you didn't do the minus 7 first, you would not have gotten the correct answer, and then you would find that out in your check. This one is just asking you to identify which properties. So I just want to go over that in case you see that on a multiple choice. 5x plus 2 minus 2. So we see they plus 2 minus 2, negative 3 minus 2. So they subtracted 2 from both sides to get started, because this is where this is the original equation. So they chose to minus 2 to both sides first. So that's just the subtraction property of equality. 5x equals negative 5, so they just simplified that right side. They simplified both. So they had 5x equals negative 5, so they divided both sides by 5, so that's just the division property of equality, and then they simplified. So that's all that we're doing. They just come up with some fancy words for our steps here. So let's not worry about the question. Let's just answer. 3x minus 4 equals 5. So I wrote out before, check for parentheses, check for like terms. There's nothing here. So the next step is to move the numbers together. So the numbers together, we have a minus 4 and a 5. This 3x is not a number term. It's a variable term because that 3 is connected to the x. So we don't move that first. We want to move anything not connected to x first. So add 4, 3x equals 5 plus 4 is 9. Now we just have that variable term, so we can get it by itself. This means 3 times x. So we divide both sides by 3. So x equals 3. So remember, 3x means 3 times x. The inverse operation would be division. So our check, 3x, so 3, right? This is where the x was. Minus 4 equals 5. 3 times 3, 9 minus 4. 5 equals 5. Check. Which equation has a solution x equals 1.5? So remember, this is kind of our check. We take 1.5, plug it in for x. So 2 times 1.5. That's what this means when you have these parentheses. So 2 times 1.5. Let's see. We have 2 times 1.5 is 3. So 3 plus 3.5 is 6.5. So A is our correct answer. If we were to put this 1.5 for any of these others, so let's just check here. So this is 1.5 over 2 minus 3.5. So this is just showing what would happen if you didn't use the inverse operation correctly. 1.5 divided by 2 is 0.75. 0.75 minus 3.5 is negative 2.75. And negative 2.75 does not equal 6.5. Look for the flipped follow-up session or the help lab for extra support on this material. Thanks so much.